Welcome, welcome, Sabbath morning. Now we rest from every care. Welcome, welcome is thy dawning. Holy Sabbath day of prayer.
Oh, there it goes. Smooth.
I guess flight interests you.
It does, and you know that whole thing of my parents meeting during the World War II, and she was a airline stewardess. And,
Wait, are you Mormon?
you know, I technically am, but never been a practicing Mormon. I was born in New Jersey, but my dad was from Salt Lake. I grew up in Salt Lake.
Huh.
Yeah, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Tom Judd is a 58-year-old artist whose work I've admired for 30 years. I finally got a chance to meet him in person on March 25th, 2011, when I drove from Ocean City to a studio in the Frannkford section of Philadelphia. I knew he is a terrific artist, but had no idea what a fascinating guy I was about to get to know. For one thing, he is a direct descendant of one Jedediah M. Grant, aka Brigham's Sledgehammer. Grant was the first mayor of Salt Lake City, Utah, who in 1856 was sent by Brigham Young to bring wayward Mormons back into the fold.
This was Heber. This was my father's grandfather, my great-grandfather. He was president of the church for 30 years, Mormon church. He was a great man. I mean, I never met him, obviously, but...
And you probably have lots of relatives running around that you don't know because...
Oh my gosh. We used to go to the Grant reunion, and we would literally go to a high school auditorium for the Grant reunion, and finally they outgrew that. And now I think they have them in football stadiums. I don't know, I haven't been to one.
Young Mormon guys are called elders, and they're sent to do missionary work. When Tom's father went on his mission, he went to New York City and promptly lost all belief in the faith. So Tom himself was not raised religiously, and in fact, when he was 18, he tried to get excommunicated by the church. His dad said, I got to work with these people. So as far as officially leaving the church, Tom decided to cool his jets.
Growing up, we had a cabin up in Utah, so the landscape has always been a huge deal to me. And I think moving to the East Coast, I'm sort of permanently homesick for that landscape. So I sit around and paint it here in this studio in the middle of the Northeast Philadelphia. Most of my paintings are of Utah. The landscape is of Utah.
Keep
I became interested in art when my parents moved from Salt Lake City to Winnetka, Illinois. And my father was hired to help plan the 1960 Republican convention that elected Richard Nixon to run against Kennedy. And we moved to Winnetka, Illinois, and then Chicago was where the convention was. So they put me in this school, in this little school, and I was just shell-shocked. I was just traumatized beyond belief. It was second grade, I think. I was supposed to be in third, but I didn't pass, or didn't cut that. I ended up in second. So then, even in second, I was struggling. So they put me in remedial reading with adults in somebody's house, and I thought I was retarded. I mean, I just thought, okay, that's great, I'm retarded, okay. So that's when I became an artist, because I started drawing to sort of escape and have my own little world. Because the world was getting really crazy. I mean, first they moved from Salt Lake. Now I'm in this remedial reading class with adults in somebody's basement. Oh, this is really getting bad, So anyway, I used to sit around and carefully draw these little battleships and put thousands of guns. And all the kids would come over to see it. And I thought, okay, this is what I do. I draw these pictures. Really, and that's when I began. And from that moment on, I loved art. And I loved visual stuff. And I loved drawing. And so that's really, yeah.
Tom eventually overcame his academic shortcomings, and while attending the University of Utah, met the artist Raphael Ferrer.
I loved Raphael Ferrer. He was teaching at PCA then. I said, I'm gonna go where you're teaching. And that's what I did. And we became really good friends. We were really good friends for a while there. He was great.
Tom earned his art degree and began his professional career with a bang, thanks to an overabundance of chutzpah.
I have to tell this story because this is sort of the beginning of my art career. I called Anne Harnoncourt on the phone and said, you've got to see my artwork. This is 2 years out of art school. And of course she tried to get me off the phone. Well, I just would not be denied. So finally she agreed to meet me. On this rainy day, I turn up at the museum back entrance. I was soaking wet. I had my little portfolio. And I said, I'm here to see Anne Harnoncourt. And he's like, of course you are. And so he calls her. So she comes down. She meets me in the coat room. She looks at him right there in the coat room. And she goes, oh, they're pretty interesting. And she makes some suggestions. And she said, well, let me show them to Ann Percy, who's head of the drawing and printing department at the museum. She said, can you leave me slides of them? So I gave her some slides. She said, I'm going to show them to them. To make a long story short, 6 months later, I get a call from Ann Percy. She and Frank Goodyear are putting together a show called Contemporary Drawing, Philadelphia. And I end up in that show at the Philadelphia Museum, and they end up buying a piece. And I was like 25 years old. So that was kind of the beginning of my art career. And then at that point, I'd been going to galleries, trying to get galleries interested. Nobody was interested. But as soon as people found out about that I was in that show, that just busted it open. And all of a sudden, I had a gallery, and I was in articles in magazines, and it was amazing.
During the afternoon that I spent in Tom's studio, I was really taken by the breadth of his creativity. And then I asked him, what kind of music do you like? He told me he listens to all kinds, from jazz to classical, but that he has a particular love for old-time country music. And the next thing I knew, this was happening.
Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone. Let's pretend that we're together all alone. I'll tell the man to turn the jukebox way down low. And you can tell your friend there with you, he'll have to go. You can say the words I want to hear when you're with another man. Tell me, do you love me, yes or no, darling, I will understand. Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone. Let's pretend that we're together all alone. I'll tell the man to turn the jukebox way down low. And you can tell that friend there with you, he'll have to go.
Tom's art is mysterious and beautiful. It is like a palimpsest of lived experience, layers of time scraped through and reused. He is obsessed with the past, especially the America of his childhood. There is a melancholy take on life in Tom's work.
That feeling of, when you find something in an attic and you're looking at a picture and all of a sudden you have that sensation that you're going to be in a box in an attic someday. It's not a bad feeling. It's just like you kind of get the whole sort of tragic nature of life. I want him to be left with a sense of like the fragility of life, the mystery of it, the poetry of it. I really think of myself as I create these almost like little poems about things. Not verbal, but visual poems where I combine different materials, and the way they play off each other is kind of the way words play off each other in a poem. I don't want it to be nostalgic. Just that sense of loss, that's what it is, that sense of loss. I love that. I think that's the essence of life, kind of, is loss. Like you have it and then you lose it. I'm a rolling stone, all alone and lost, for a life of sin. I've paid the cost when I pass by all the people say, just another guy on that lost highway.
Tom's art is a true reflection of his personality. He is forever curious about the world, all of life, history, science, nature, human endeavor. These things endlessly inflame his imagination. Tom collects obsessively. Old recipes, snapshot albums, ledger books, the stuff and evidence of human life. There is a meaning he seeks in these mundane items, something sad and deep and beautiful.
A lot of my imagery is it's from old encyclopedias, postcards. I go on eBay and I order old family albums of people's vacation pictures, and I just love that. These little black and white pictures of people standing around in front of cars and stuff. And sometimes I'll get those and I won't even know what I want to do with them. I don't know whether I want to glue that in and paint over that, or actually do a drawing of that, or none of the above. I don't really know. I just collect stuff that I like, that interests me. I'm also always looking for materials to paint on. One of my favorite things that I collage with is player piano roll music. What's great about them is you've got the little holes, and then you've got the words to the song going up the side. So it introduces this kind of random poetry. Her hair was bright as the dew. I love collaging old envelopes and just flattening them out and drawing on top of them. I'm creating things that look like you would be found somewhere, sort of found objects, found things.
Tom's process of art making may be free and open-ended, sometimes to the point of randomness, but his innate sense of design guarantees that his compositions are always deeply satisfying and complete.
In my work, I like to create a kind of tension between soft and hard things, like a soft landscape and then a kind of hard edge of some sort of an object. And I also have this urge always to place something on top of something else. It's almost like pin the tail on the donkey. You know, remember that game? You have your eyes closed, or you have a thing over your eyes, and you just, and then you open, and it's always kind of surprising where the tail ended up. So I want to create a kind of surprising combination and a little tension where something seemingly unintentionally ends up there. I almost want it to feel unintentional. And I've even closed my eyes, or at least not looked at the picture while I'm attaching and gluing stuff sometimes. I want it to not feel designed. I want it to have that kind of haphazard, spontaneous thing, like it just happened.
Tom has also produced installations and other pieces of conceptual art, notably for shows at the Stremel Gallery in Reno, Nevada. In each of these shows, Tom has created a conceptual centerpiece and then surrounded that with more traditional paintings and drawings. In 2005, he built a hermit's cabin and filled it with various artifacts. In 2008, the Stremels painted a 20 by 40 foot wall of their gallery with gray chalkboard paint, and then rented an hydraulic lift so that Tom could create his giant chalkboard jungle. And in this upcoming show, an equally audacious piece of art will be featured.
The focus of this show is going to be the map of the world I did, titled The World is Flat. I originally created it for a project last summer for the Chestnut Hill Arts Initiative, an initiative to create art installations in abandoned storefronts. And I was fortunate enough to get a mammoth abandoned storefront in the form of a car dealership window. So I did this 12-foot high by 25-foot long map of the world painted on cardboard boxes. So we laid the thing out flat, taped all the cardboard boxes together. We built a very simple structure substrate behind it to hold it together. Painted a map of the world on it, myself and my assistant, and then put it up. That map is going to be in the show. It's going to be sort of the centerpiece of the show at Stremel.
They say the best art happens when the style of it fits with the content. Tom Judd's process emphasizes freedom and change. His intent is to capture what he loves about this world and the experience of those, living and dead, who have witnessed the unpredictable and ever-changing poetry of life.
Is thy dawning holy Sabbath day of prayer?
This letter was in the scrapbook, and it's to Mr. Brinkman. Please get well now! Exclamation mark. It's obviously from a child, probably to an older neighbor. I'm really missing you. It just isn't the same with you gone. I really mean it. It is lonely here, and every time I look over at your house, it looks empty. Zazuki has mostly stopped going in your irises. That must be a pet. Sincerely, Todd Earn. I guess this is his name. So it's from a little boy, but I love that.
On this road of sin, you are sorrow bound. Take my advice, or you'll curse the day you started rolling down that long